All right, welcome everyone. This is episode 2 of what's now going to be known as the Tech Deck Show. I've got here Levi Lais, and I'm Sean Ong. We talked a little bit last week about the layoffs at Microsoft and what that meant for Windows Mixed Reality, what that meant for HoloLens. It was quite a gripping discussion. And I guess coming right off that heels, Levi, you were saying Google just announced some layoffs as well?
Yeah, 2 days later, Google laid off 12,000. So big
massive.
changes in the industry. Yeah.
So at the same time these layoffs are happening, there's also kind of been this interesting shift where Microsoft has doubled down on investing in OpenAI. I think the news was saying that they're going to invest like 10 billion or something like that on top of what they've already invested. And I guess Google, even on the heels of this layoffs, they're also like doubling down on AI as well. So there's this little bit of a shift going on right now where right in front of us, technology is suddenly like seismically shifting towards AI, and there's something going on, but we don't know exactly what, right?
Yeah. It's I think that Microsoft invested obviously a lot of time and resources into the HoloLens, and then Google, after seeing ChatGPT, the headlines are basically reading that Google's freaking out because they're going to get replaced.
Code red.
Code red. So I read it was the 20th, so today is the 1st, right? So it was a little over a week ago. They laid off 12,000. It was 2 days after Microsoft's 10,000. I think in a memo, they were basically saying they were doubling down on AI along with all of these other, alarmist headlines of Google getting replaced. So I think that it is an interesting footnote that Google invested in Magic Leap, in 2014. So predating the HoloLens release. They put over 500 million in. And Magic Leap, I think, has raised like 3.5 billion at this point. So I'm not sure. I don't know if they've done follow-on investments. I haven't looked into it that deeply, but I do know that Google's essentially involved with Magic Leap, or has been. So you got to wonder: is there something that happened in the lab where they're all like, "This is." It's just a little bit out of reach, I don't know, but they both companies that were very heavily focused on wearable AR have now made this, made it a pretty decent shift resources wise into artificial intelligence. And so,
And unless you've been kind of living under a rock, I think everyone knows that ChatGPT has taken the world by storm, right? It's gone viral. I think it was like it hit 1 million users in the first 5 days, which broke some sort of record.
Right.
And everyone that I know has either heard of it or is actively using it. Do you use ChatGPT?
Yeah. So, in multiple ways. So it's, finances season, right? I'm a LLC S Corp for my agency work, and then I've also got we have a few rental properties, and so I've been just buried in my Apple numbers spreadsheets, getting it all kind of prepped for tax season, and I've never really been like an Excel whiz, I don't have all of the formulas memorized. And, one of the things that ChatGPT is really good at is conversational. I ask with conversation, and then ChatGPT can give me back, very specific formulas with a complete explanation of what I'm looking at. So instead of having to like scour the internet, right, and look for somebody who's like walking through this thing in this random situation, I can get a very specific answer. So long and short of it is I've been using ChatGPT in Excel, Apple numbers, pretty effectively. Like,
Yeah.
give me, beginning of this date, ending with this date. It has, this type of transaction for this property. Give me the sum of those transactions.
That would take forever to find on Google. Right.
Right. And it's like, and it's not programmatic. At least I'm not aware of a programmatic way to do it. So you have to do all of this in like one formula in an Excel cell or an Apple numbers cell. And so I'm putting in like just this bullet point list, and it kicks out the formula, and I'm like, this is amazing. So I just feel like a superhero now on spreadsheets. So that has
it's powerful.
It's affecting the bottom line for me.
Yeah.
Period.
It's 100%. As far as like amplifying work, there's no doubt about it. I would say like personally, I've probably shifted from like Googling 100% of my questions down to like maybe like 20%. I feel like 80% of what I do now is ChatGPT, So I can see like, I don't think everyone's doing that just yet, but if that's the trend, I can see why Google is totally freaking out right now. Like most things, I don't even think like, oh, do I really want to like go into ChatGPT and like do the effort, or do I just want to Google it? But then I'm like, no, because I can just ask it in ChatGPT and get the answer that I need way more quickly. And if it's not, I just keep like clarifying my question. And you can't do that in Google. Like you can ask questions in Google and see some forum somewhere, which is okay. Like that's how we've always done it. But this new paradigm shift it's a benefit for us. But I don't know. What do you think Google's going to do? Are they going to scramble to get a competing solution out, or do you think they're doomed? Are they going to go away?
Yeah. I mean, yesterday's news cycle had, what did they call it? It was, I'm just looking real quick to see if I've got an article up on the layoffs. There's a name for it that they're basically having all of their devs essentially are like, it's all hands on deck, and they're testing to see the viability of this internal product that they have. It sounds like,
it's like Google, Lambda or something like that.
ChatGPT competitor. Let's just look real quick, because why not? This is our show. We can do it. All right. Apprentice Bard. That
rolls
right off the tongue, right? That's easy.
Okay.
So Google is asking employees to test potential ChatGPT competitors, including a chatbot called Apprentice Bard. So it's an all. The product tests come after an all-hands meeting where employees raise concerns about their competitive edge in AI. So, Google is basically, laser-like focused on saving their core business. And some of the reading that I've been doing, they have to disrupt themselves, and they will make less money. And so, who are they? I don't, who has to be convinced? I don't know. But at the end of the day, we have precedent of big companies that got so big that they couldn't afford to disrupt themselves, and then they got replaced.
So I guess Google is basically right now facing the innovator's dilemma, huh?
Yeah,
and
100%.
And I think it's really interesting, actually, putting it in that context, that Microsoft took the approach they did with OpenAI, because essentially, I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with the Innovator's Dilemma book, but basically the premise of that book was that small companies always disrupt big companies because big companies are not really positioned to innovate in that way, right? And so what that book basically said, the only way around this dilemma is if a big company creates like a small startup division, right, that can do its own thing and disrupt the big company.
Right.
So essentially, like, do you think Microsoft has essentially done that with OpenAI? Do you think that was intentional, or did it just kind of work out that way, or is it still too early to tell?
So there's something that's not really in the innovator's dilemma, and that, like, I think has a big impact, and that is a company like Google is not going to disrupt Google, and because of this innovator's dilemma. But Microsoft, who makes their money in enterprise software, will disrupt Google or can disrupt Google.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I think that it doesn't necessarily have to be like so small that they can't, like, I think that like, everybody's trying to eat each other's food, right? Like, so Facebook is trying to replace Apple, right? With their via pass through the whole thing. And you've got Microsoft trying to replace Google, and Google's the fat cat. They're just like, search ads and everything, but they've got their moonshots, right?
Yeah.
And, they changed to Alphabet so they could have all of these other, companies and not, infringe or whatever on, like, I think it was related to like monopoly concerns and different things like that. But.
Yeah, I know Microsoft has been trying to catch Google for a long time. Like, they pushed really hard with Bing at one point. I don't know if you remember, like, all the different like promos they were running and like trying commercials. They were trying super hard. And because Google's search ad business is huge, it's amazing. And it's very, Microsoft wants it super bad. So I don't know, maybe now is finally like, they finally have something that's not Bing.
Yeah, right.
That can kind of give Google a run for its money, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I use Chrome way more than I do Internet Explorer,
Yeah.
And, And so it's like, Microsoft was like, all of their big successes have sort of been replaced except for the enterprise software. But even then, Apple has basically completely taken over the creative side of compute needs. Right. So,
exactly.
I think that it's interesting because Google, they're not that far away from, like, okay, so if they have the tech, like if they have the AI that's as good, right?
Yeah.
They have access to more data, I would think, than OpenAI and Microsoft have. I don't know how many billions of whatever they've thrown in there quite yet, but they have the server power.
Mm-hmm.
Google's a big server, has a big server resource, I guess maybe is the way to put that. And so I think that, like, they don't necessarily have to replace. People are interested in looking for like what you're talking about, but then every once in a while it's wrong, right?
Yeah.
And so if Google was able to essentially augment their traditional search, where you still have ads, you still have recommended sites, but then you have the chat like solution, like, I don't know how much that eats into, because people still want to find websites. Not everybody wants to just ask this bot and just hope that it's right, Yeah. So there's a really important piece missing, in my opinion, of like sourcing information. Like, it would be nice if ChatGPT's answers had like a bibliography, right? Like something saying like, this is where I got this information,
Kinda like what Wikipedia does with their sources, right?
Right. So like, if it's sourcing Wikipedia, say it, give us a link, So I don't know if they have the resources or that exist quite yet to provide that. And so if Google's AI solution is 80% of ChatGPT, I think that they'll just stay way up at the top. Everybody's already going to Google. They'll see this new feature. And so I do believe that Google's business model can remain the same, but like the way that we use Google might change.
Yeah, 100%. I think something else we're seeing right now too, which is, I'm just speculating, but I think this is the case, is more of a business decision, like a financial decision, because the Chat GPT type responses, I heard, is like 10 to 100 times more expensive than a Google search, right? So Google can't, like, maybe they already have the tech, but they can't just like suddenly put it on because they would go out of business, right?
Right.
And you know, OpenAI has this tech, but they're constantly turning it off for people, and like they're kind of like staggering it out a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I guess I think I heard that they are playing around with the idea of a subscription, like 40 something dollars a month to use ChatGPT. I know, like for me, I would probably subscribe. Like that seems like a lot, but the value that I get out of it.
Oh yeah. No joke. I've already like it's already having such a massive impact. Like I talked about, Apple numbers, but like I'm using it in a lot of places
Yeah,
already.
yeah,
So,
for sure, for sure. And I've got some people who, in the past I've been like, hey, can you help me write this blog article and help, and like ChatGPT, I'm sorry to say, but it does it way better
yeah.
than all the people that have, are costing a lot more money. Like,
Yeah.
really bad. I don't know who's watching this, but it's the truth. I mean, I'll be fair. It writes better blog articles than I write. Like I'll give it some ideas and its grammar is way better than mine. And, it's like, it's good, and so it's
Right.
worth the money. I'd probably even spend more than $40 a month, but it made me think, like, what is the future? Like if this is the future of search, or if this is part of search, what is the future of how this is going to be monetized? Like, can you mix subscription with ads, or is it going to all go towards ads like Google has, or is it going to like start to shift towards like subscribed search, which we've really never seen before in any meaningful way? Like nobody ever subscribes to a website like Google or Bing or Yahoo to search. That maybe now this is going to be some sort of new business model that comes out. I mean, what do you think this is going to change the face of search and how we interact with it, and ads and monetization? Like, where do you think this is going to go from that standpoint?
Yeah, so I think that like so here, let me just share this real quick. Let's go with the window. All right. Are you able to see what I'm
Yep.
showing here? All right, so
Chat
this is just a bit.
GPT.
Yeah, this is Google. I just searched ChatGPT. So in my mind, they have plenty of real estate for a chatbot, right? Like so over here is sort of like an intelligent view into, this is obviously a company. Let's show the most relevant thing up
Mm-hmm.
in this top space here.
Yeah.
And then you've got your ad, you have like potentially the most relevant thing, and then you have all of your ads and stuff, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm not seeing ads actually right now. Maybe nobody's advertising with ChatGPT. Usually it says ads, right? Anyways, all right. But like the point is, I think that there's room for a conversational query that so like if you were to Google it and then it was a conversation like ChatGPT, you're not gonna do a full conversational reply, right?
Yeah.
AI is not really worried about that because it's one word. But if you were to maybe do something where they could detect, is this conversational, using very fixed, they don't have to have AI to know, is there a question, is there a
Yeah.
W, a what or a why, or,
Yeah.
so like, I think that, searching and pressing enter, like you could have a prompter that's basically like get a like search this way instead kind of a thing,
Yeah.
it's an extra step. But ChatGPT, you're asking a question, then you're asking another question, and then you're clarifying. Like, so I think that there's potential for, like, again, if the quality is there. What's made ChatGPT so amazing is that it's so good.
Yeah. Yep.
So does Google have the resources to make a good AI? Yes, right? Like unless OpenAI has a bunch of patents that we're not aware of, which they probably do, right? But
Yeah.
unless they've been essentially, patented so airtight that there's no way for Google to compete, I think that, Google dumping their resources and attention into this, they'll have a competitor very soon,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll integrate perfectly with their search. I don't think that it's going to take too much out of, resource wise. It just gives them another thing to monetize, as far as ads go, people might get more and more comfortable with the answer, but I don't know about you. Like and this is probably a whole new topic, but,
Uh-huh.
when I ask ChatGPT complicated questions or questions that require really accurate data, like if I'm giving it the data, it's really good at like
Yeah.
converting things into conversational responses or
Yeah.
asking questions. But I very often, anytime I ask it like information based questions, I'm getting very weird answers that are
Yeah.
not accurate.
Yeah. No,
you
I
know,
I asked it one time, I'm like, hey, like, how much money does the average arcade make? And it started like spitting out all these stats. I'm like, wow, those are impressive numbers. I'm like, what are the source of these numbers? Like, sorry, I can't give that to you. I'm like, all right, so I'm just supposed to like trust, and like I don't know, like when it comes to data, I don't know that I feel comfortable enough to trust it. I'm like, where is it getting these numbers from?
right, totally. So, let's pull up ChatGPT here. So
All right, live
there's
demo
a
time. Here we go.
right. So there's one primary issue, and that's going into ChatGPT. You have to have good prompts, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that there's going to be AI pilots. That's my personal opinion. I think
Yeah.
that there's going to be people that know how to interface, or what would maybe be AI layer 2 solutions that they'll prepare. Like you and I are actually working on a
Hmm.
solution that will provide certain prompts in certain places to get the things that we need without a whole lot of effort, right? So a very
Yeah.
clean, easy user interface
Yeah.
for interfacing with something like this. And so I think that it's got the prompt piece is going to be important because you have to know what you need out of it. Like when I'm
Yeah.
talking to you, I need to communicate with you clearly and effectively.
Yeah.
Most fights between two people are because of miscommunication, and AI
Yeah.
will be no different. So
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
like you basically have to be good at communicating in order to use AI in a
Yeah.
functional way. Because you
Yep.
have to know what you need to get out of it. So
Yep.
there's always going to be some sort of basis of knowledge that's required, and like knowing what you need to get out of it. Now, can that be automated to certain levels where it feels like you're doing nothing and it's doing all of this for you? Yeah, right. But I do believe that for a very long time, just because of the data training requirements, the quality of the data, the quality of the prompts, all of those things going into it, it's amazing at what it does, but it doesn't do everything,
Yeah.
right? At this point.
Yeah.
So pulling out ChatGPT, I'll show you. We had a rental go into service this year,
Hmm.
in October 1st. It went into service, and I've got my spreadsheets out and I'm working, right? And so I was like, okay, it's 27 and a half years for depreciation, right? So you take the value of the purchased home, you subtract the value of the land, any capital improvements you would add, and then that's your basis. And then you take that and you divide it by 27 and a half years. 27 and a half IRS, come on. But okay, it is what it is. So I'm wondering, is the first year the half year? Is it like a partial year? Is
Yeah.
it just a rate? Like, so many questions. I could ask an accountant, but I thought, well, we have ChatGPT now. Let's
Hmm.
ask
Yep.
ChatGPT, right? So So then you're like, okay, so how do I frame this question?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, how am I going to ask ChatGPT in a way that makes sense enough to give it what it needs? So I'll say, you're a tax accountant, or let's say your role, because this helps a lot because it kind of gives it where to look, right? So your role is a tax accountant. I have a question for you. All right. I put a property into service on October 1st, 2022. What is the percentage that I should use for depreciation in this partial year? Would you say that that's kind of asking the question that I'm?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see what ChatGPT says. And I know the answer because I went and found it on Google. Google, has professionals that that know what the answer is, and you can get it. So based on what I understand, you take 1, you divide it by 27.5. That gives you your percentage for the year, and then you divide that by 12, and then you multiply it by the number of months, or I think it's days, so you divide it by 365, I believe, and then you multiply it by the number of days that it's in service, and that's the percentage you take in year 1. And then the last year is also a like partial percentage-based year based on the number of days. So this says to calculate the depreciation for a partial year for property put into service on October 1st, 2022, you would use a percentage of 8.33%, 1/12 of 100%. This is because the property was in service for 3 months of the year, October, November, and December, and you would divide 12 months by the number of months the property was in service. So it says nothing about 27 and a half years.
Yeah.
Right? It's not giving me the actual percentage.
Yeah.
Because the actual percentage is like you would do 1 divided by 27.5 divided by 12 times 3. So 0.9%, and with all of the, extra digits there, is what I would use is what I would write off of the basis in year 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But that's nowhere near this.
Yeah. So its response was beautiful, but inaccurate.
Exactly. But if I was like, so I've asked questions and then I've asked ChatGPT to analyze the emotion in what I'm saying. And it was very accurate. Like I texted Julie, my wife, and we got into a little bit of a tiff, and then I asked ChatGPT, and I was like, anyways, like I got into a full therapy session. It was like
counseling ChatGPT.
Oh yeah.
Right?
And it was like giving me advice on words to use and how to say. I said, "You're a therapist," and so that one worked really well.
I love it.
Right. So like if you're like, let's see, I can't do the dishes today because I'm super tired. I didn't get any sleep last night because you were snoring. She doesn't all night. Please, for the love, just let me rest! ! Let's say that. All right. So let's say I texted that to Julie, and then I'm like, or I'm about to text it, and so I say, does this text make me sound angry? Or does the following text make me sound angry? Yes. The text likely conveys anger, frustration, and annoyance due to the use of phrases such as "I can't,"
That's
"super
amazing.
tired," "didn't
That's
get any
incredible.
sleep." Let's say, and then we'll say, "You're a therapist. How do I change the verbiage so that my wife knows that I love her. And this one I'll be waiting for a little while sometimes on some of these.
The ChatGPT therapy mode has to do a little bit more work.
Yeah, so I don't know where it's going or who it's asking. Again, it would be nice if it cited sources.
Yeah.
Right?
So I definitely have noticed that for things super complex, it takes a while. And I am curious, like, what is it doing behind the scenes?
Right.
That's amazing that you spelt verbiage wrong, and verbiage itself is kind of even not really a word, but it knew what you were saying.
Really? Is verbiage spelled wrong here?
Actually, I don't know. Does it have an I in it? Maybe. Is it a real word? I don't even know.
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah, that's a word. Speech or writing that uses too many words or excessively technical expressions.
All right.
So please change the writing that was using too many words and excessively technical expressions. Okay, here's an example of how you can rephrase the text to express your love for your wife while still communicating your tiredness. Honey, I'm feeling really exhausted today and I didn't get much sleep last night. I love you so much, but I'm just not up for doing the dishes right now. Could you help me out by taking care of them for me? I really need to rest so I can feel better. Thank you so much for understanding. In this version, you still communicate your tiredness. So anyways, I did this with a real text, and then I asked my wife, I was like, would this have gone better? And she was like, yes. And I'm like, but it's not me. And she's like, well, it should be. So, ChatGPT is very emotionally intelligent.
What if somebody created a service where any text you send out gets filtered through a ChatGPT automatically? You don't even have to think about it. You send people one-word responses, and ChatGPT takes care of the etiquette of it, right?
Right. So then you get into, would you subscribe to a text service, right? Like, because Grammarly is a site that does a lot of analysis, lets you know what your emotions are, all of these things. So they're like one step away from providing alternative solutions.
Yeah. So there is a wave of brand new services like that, right? If ChatGPT is the iPhone, there are millions of apps to be developed around it, right? The one that I just mentioned is just something, right? I'm sure millions of others have thought of it at this point, but like, what are your thoughts on the entrepreneurs of today who are just eager to jump on the train and get started, and there's all this opportunity around what you can build on top of a service like ChatGPT? Is this going to cause a new boom, like a new tech boom where all these AI sub services come out? Not everyone's going to invent AI or a large language model, but everyone will develop solutions built on top of these types of language models, right? And what are your thoughts on that for entrepreneurs today?
That's a good question, because when you're building a software solution, it's always best, in my humble opinion and my professional opinion, to minimize the amount of third-party dependencies, right? Yeah. And so how much you depend on a third party for your end product, the higher the percentage of the product that depends on other products that you don't control, the higher the business risk, right? And so not to say, everybody relies on AWS, or the equivalent, so it's not like you can't depend on things. And Netflix relies on other companies to host their videos, right? So it's just a matter of being smart about what you're depending on. And so one of the things I've been noticing, because I've been doing a pretty deep dive into AI and into just the services that are coming out, the core services, and then sort of the layer 2 stuff that's coming out, trying to figure out what can you lean on, what's stable enough to actually build the business. ChatGPT doesn't even have an API yet, right? So you've got GPT-3, which ChatGPT uses, but can you start a business and then just hope ChatGPT is going to be affordable? We've talked about that offline. That's something that. So I think that it'll cause a boom in some respects, because I think a bunch of people are going to just start coming out with various implementations, like
Yeah.
the ideas that you're talking about. I think that, I've seen, there's been a lot of AI stuff, but
Yeah.
this next wave it becomes so much more user friendly. It's like we finally have a good UI, right? There's
Yeah.
finally that user interface that works.
Yeah.
So I think that there's going to be a decent push towards that. I think that, the tools that come out are going to be hit or miss. I think there's going to be a lot of people putting a lot of stuff out, and it'll sort of sift its way through. But I mean, like, I read a book called Chaos Monkeys, and I don't even remember the guy's name, but like he he started some like AdWords thing, and then like got acquired, and I think he had Facebook and Twitter like bidding against each other or something, but like, the point is, like, he, made some tool that like helped people do better, like AdWords stuff, so like
Yeah.
tools on tools on tools, right? Like layer 4, layer 5
Yeah.
tools. And so I think that, what's exciting about this is that, OpenAI is a core tool. That's the Linux, it's
Yeah.
like a very important foundational
Yeah.
resource, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that because that quality is now starting to get to a point where there's some reliability. Again, we just went through a couple examples, of like things that aren't necessarily reliable, things that are, I think that, the better the data gets, it'll be better. But like, is OpenAI going to do all of that, or will it be like layer 2 models? I've been listening to the dude who is running OpenAI. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I've watched like 4 sit down.
He'll be a household name before too long, I imagine.
Sam Altman? Is it Altman?
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, so he, his thing is like, this is like a core or a base model, and then like other models will essentially tap into sort of the infrastructure so that it works properly. But like, again, you've got data and you've got prompts, and both of those things are so contextual. Like if I go out to the woods and I do something, and then I come back to my house, AI knows nothing about that.
Yeah.
Right. So you still need a person to tell the story. You still need a person to enter the data. You still need, you could have a camera. You could have facts about it. It would know with my phone in my pocket where I went, and then be able to, talk about how fast I walked. Right. So there's enough data to gather, but like, it would have to create fiction around that. This story is based on true facts, right? It would have to create fiction around that to truly, like, or to give anything that's compelling. And so I think there will always be a data entry, a data teaching, a data guiding, an input responsibility of like from the real world, right? And then I think that like the opportunity, there's a very long answer, but the opportunity I think lies around industry specific models that like use this now relatively stable core model. And so then, AI and crypto and AR, like you're going to see all these combos. You're going to see all these, like the product that you and I are working on. I've got 4 or 5 different AI services that we're essentially going to be dependent on based on the research. And so, it'd be nice if that was one, and it was one that was stable. Right. So, I think that, the more stable, the more a product can get, the more traction that it can get, I think the better, the more that can be built on top of that. So we're just at the very core. And so I think it's just building out those first building blocks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The boom is coming. Maybe we don't have everything yet for the boom. Something that I feel like I've maybe learned over the last few years is that you almost, like, you can't be too early because then you fail. you can't, but you can also can't be on time, because by the time you're on time, you're late. Right? Like by the time all the tools are there for you to do what you want to do easily, you're late. But it's almost like you have to be slightly early, where it's not quite possible yet, but you get your foot in the door, and then when things are finally there, you're already positioned for success. It's kind of a weird, I don't know. What are your thoughts on like the timing of like being right on the edge of tech?
Well, you're the one who's had 2 companies successfully funded, so you tell me.
I wouldn't call them successful yet. We'll see. Check back in a couple of years and we'll see.
Right. Well, but you've had, you've been able to get people on board, and you've started to make traction, especially in Maneuver. We're co-founders in Maneuver. I'm in it with you, but
that'll be a fun episode one day to talk about.
Yeah,
that,
right. Yeah, that's a whole nother episode, which I think we'll do. I want to be more consistent about doing this now. I think that the tech show is gonna start becoming be a thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that so the challenge is that you have to have the tools. Like, unless you're if you're in a lab and you're an engineer and you're at MIT or you're at Stanford and you're doing all, like, you got to keep an eye on what those guys are doing and gals, right? What those folks are doing. But yeah, so you got to keep an eye on what they're doing, because like it's going to be coming down the pipeline. And I think that, these big booms, like the NFT excitement and all these, like, I mean, our buddy Charles Poole, he's been doing. Yeah, let's do it. I mean, on the Bitcoin, on the crypto episode for sure. Yeah. I think having Charles on there, and Brett, that would be cool too, to get Brett and Charles on the video, in the chat. But he's been doing blockchain since like 2015, maybe, like way before it was a buzzword. Like, if I need to know what's coming next, Charles is the guy, because he's already been doing it for 6 months. So the exciting thing is that once that foundation component is there, it's a race. So our job is to be equipped. Our job is to be in shape. Our job is to be ready for the opportunity. We're on the bench and we're ready to get put in the game, and so like you and I talked back in 2012, we were like, man, we missed the iPhone craze. What can we do to be ready for the next one? And then we did it. And we were. And then we were in the AR VR space. We've been, we've been building tutorials for the MRTK with Microsoft. Like that's as edge as you can get. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're actually, like, I remember, doing that speech one, and like the translation SDK, I'm looking at like half of the documentation existing, the other half not existing. There's like no way to, all I can do is look at what the last documentation did, and then like hack my way to like, okay, that worked. Okay, their server must have a function for that. Like legit, like bleeding edge tech, development, but we were ready for that because we learned all of the pieces. We learned all of the components. Like, we read so much and watched, about every possible YouTube walkthrough and video we could. And, I learned Swift. I learned C#. So we were really pushing to be ready. Yeah. And then when the opportunity came, we were. And so I think the best thing that we can do right now with AI, like, it's not too late, but like, hopefully you were ready. Like, hopefully you know how to code so you can start tapping into these APIs and seeing how they work and seeing what's happening. Right? Yeah. And so it's like, you kind of get your foot in the door, you get a little bit of, you get some contacts, and, maybe you can partner up with somebody who has the idea and you can build it. It's a lot easier if you know how to make it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if you can approach 100%. It as a maker, I mean, as far as I'm aware, Zuckerberg like made what he was doing. Steve Jobs did work on the Apple one, so
Yeah.
like I think that like it's really important to, Bill Gates especially, he was a coder,
Mhm. Yep.
programmer. Yeah.
Software developer, software
Soft,
engineer.
yeah, software engineer, but it's like, you don't have to be like you don't have to have a degree necessarily, but you
Mhm.
do have to have an education, and you have to
Yeah.
be in the right place at the right time and ready. Being ready
Yeah.
is the only thing we can really control. And so I think that, now is the time to start exploring where these technologies converge.
Yeah.
Explore like tinkering and testing, and like I wonder if it can do this. Like those are
Yeah.
the questions that lead to the breakthrough,
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So
And I think in these last couple minutes we have left in our show, I think that's great advice for anyone out there who's like an aspiring entrepreneur, right? And this is the next train, right? I think there's no doubt about it. I think there's always a lot of trains. I think crypto's another train, AR VR is another train, but some of those trains have already left the station, right? They're still going to go places, so it's still worth hopping on them. But this train is like just getting started, right?
yeah,
And I think this
yeah,
is going to be the AI train is going to be a pretty big train, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities. A lot of app developers, they probably could have never developed the iPhone or created the iPhone, right? This just takes too much capital. I think the same might be true for AI. Like it takes a lot of resources to make an AI like this, but
yeah.
you can still be essentially a developer that creates apps that are built on top of some of these AI solutions coming out. It's going to be
Right.
pretty exciting. There's going to be entire full movies made with AI, with video and everything. I don't know when, in the next few years, maybe.
Yeah, and I think that I think ChatGPT, a parallel to crypto is Solana, in my opinion. I
Yeah.
think that I just looked it up. March 16th of 2020 was when their first block was created.
Oh,
Uh,
really? That recent?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
I didn't know that.
it was initially released April 19th. It says up at bank rate, and then Wikipedia says that Solana's first block was created on March 16th of 2020. So either way, 3 years old, less than 2 to 3 years old. Oh no, 3 or 4 years old at this point. But Charles was he was doing stuff with Solana within like months. You know,
Mm. Wow. Yeah.
this is that moment in
Yeah.
AI. ChatGPT, Solana you could do stuff with, I think, back then, and it got more and more and more robust, right? ChatGPT we can't do a lot with yet without API and everything, but GPT-3, which is what it's built on, is accessible. And
Yeah.
you go to these tools that exist. I'm looking up. I'm like, is there an AI tool for this? Is there an AI tool for that? Like, what was that? There was a website. It was futurepedia.io.
I have used that quite a bit since you shared it with me.
Yeah, let's
It's
put that in
awesome.
the comments, right?
Yeah,
Let's
right.
put
Yeah.
Futurepedia in the comments, because that is the place to go right now to like find AI tools. And some of them are really powerful. Some of them are like brand new, haven't really been vetted or proven. But the biggest thing is like finding where can I use AI to make myself more productive, and getting yourself sort of familiar with it, I think
Yeah.
is really important. But
100%.
yeah. So just to segue out and kind of wrap up the show,
Mhm.
I'm thinking, for the foreseeable future, I want to shoot for once a week if we
Yeah.
can.
I think that'd be great.
And I think, the Tech show, Tech is Technology Technicians. That was a name that I came up with, 2012 or 10 maybe? Like, it was a long time ago. I bought a logo for like $25. I had a guy make me a logo, and then, it was like, oh my gosh, that's so expensive. I'm buying a logo? What? I was wasn't quite the entrepreneur mindset back then, but I was like, what am I doing? But yeah, and the very first iteration of the Tech was an LLC I created in Denver, Colorado to do iPhone jailbreaking. And that it didn't go well. It was not a successful company. Turns out only one person wanted their phone jailbroken. So, didn't hit it big with that one. Yeah. And so then from there, it kind of went into, well, what about like helping people unplug, right? Because 10 years ago, unplugging was the big thing, right?
Cut the cable.
Cut the cable, cut the cord. Have you cutted the cord?
Oh man, we're getting old.
Right. And I think I had 2 customers with that one. And then you
wasn't one of them like a grandma or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that was the target customer was folks that couldn't figure it out themselves back in the day. Like this was it pre-Roku? I mean, it was like really like
it was early.
Cutting edge. But I think my revenue for that year was like $100 or something. Yeah. And so, I don't think I made enough to pay off the logo. So if you'll recall, I actually gave it to you when your YouTube channel got going. And so we've had this little Tech logo kind of, for 10 years or so. But the whole idea was like, the Tech, your technology technician. And so in this context, the Tech show, the whole idea is just to talk technology, bleeding edge, cutting edge tech is what I like to call it. And we're talking about it from a technician's perspective, right? Like we're in it every day. We're working on it every day. We have personal experience in agency work and in our own funded startups with AR, VR, AI, crypto. And so, I want to talk about our experiences, talk about our adventures in this space, talk about current events. I don't want this to be the layoff show. I don't know that we need to have like a layoff tracker, but I guess
every episode with the last week's layoffs.
Right? Yeah. Comment down below if you want us to only focus on layoffs. But yeah, so if you're watching this, you're listening to this, and that sounds like something you'd be interested in, listening to on a weekly basis. We're talking tech, we're talking opportunity. We are both all in this space, and we're looking to just build community, brainstorm. We were having these conversations offline, so we thought, why not do a podcast and see if people want to jump in.
Exactly.
Have some guests, bring some people in.
We've got some friends would be super fun. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I want to do a crypto episode with Charles and Brett.
That'd be epic.
And I think we've got Microsoft buddies. We've got some friends at Facebook. We've got some various people who've, done different things in the space. One of my good friends and a guy who works with us on both startups, Mark, he's got a pretty fun past. Like he's worked on Magic Leap. He's worked on like in-store kiosk videos for like Apple and Samsung, and some fun stuff there too. I'd be interested to know where that space is going with some of this stuff. Like, maybe we'll get into like AI powered customer support, because he's got some retail tech experience. So we've got some fun guests I think we'll bring on over the course. And I don't want to commit to a whole hour every time. We might not have that much to talk about. Who am I kidding? I'm pretty long winded, but
I think like 30 minutes as a target, I think would be good. And then
I think so.
If it's fun and we go longer, okay. But yeah, I think 30 minutes is probably good.
Yeah, I think we'll do like, if we're not at 30 yet, come on, we'll put in the work, right? But if we're at an hour, we're like, we got to stop, so that window, I think will be perfect. It'll be perfect. So.
Perfect.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much, Levi. This is great. And yeah, I guess for everyone out there, you can catch us on the next episode next week. And have a great week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.